All right. So this is Angel Sarabia. Welcome to this video. This is going to be like an interview to talk about the disaster. So disasters have the power to shape the very foundations of our existence, leaving behind a trail of destruction, loss, and resilience. So today, we have the privilege of speaking with Nestor Avelar, a survivor of the 2001 earthquake in El Salvador. Through his first-hand account, we gain a glimpse into his experience of living through this catastrophic event and the profound impact it had on his life. So, Nestor, can you please introduce yourself and share a little bit your background and experience during the earthquake in El Salvador in 2001?
Yeah, sure. Hi, how you doing, everybody? My name is Nestor Avelar. Um, Angel is one of my best friends, so I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous with this interview for the first time.
Don't worry about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here to explain how was my experience of this big earthquake back in 2001, right? Yeah. Well, I'm currently living in California. I think I left the country in 2006. Yeah, I have a little bit of memory and my experience with earthquake in 2001, which was the biggest earthquake. If you guys can remember, if you guys like were young, back was like born in the 90s, so probably you were little when you remember this catastrophic event in our country.
Right. And one thing that I remember is that on that specific day, I went from your house to my house on that day. So it was something interesting. So let's check the other question. How did the earthquake affect your surroundings? I mean, such buildings, infrastructure, and the people around you.
Oh, well, like honestly, I at that moment I didn't live in the city. I live more in the countryside of the, La Libertad, San Juan Pico, Joya de Serene. And I still remember that day. I remember like we were like talking, my family, part of my family, and I guess you were outside talking with my mom. I remember just a big barrel full of water just start shaking, and all the water was spilling all over the place. That was a vivid memory that I have at that moment. And then my surroundings, first thing that you need to do is, try to make sure you're gonna be safe. And I don't know, at that moment I didn't remember because everybody get panic. Like try to be under the door, I guess, because the first thing that you need to do at that moment is like try to secure yourself or try to be safe for anything that's gonna injure your head, I guess. Under the table, right? That was my surrounding. I didn't remember like people screaming outside because the first thing that you do when that happens and everything happens, you wanna, kind of run away. But I think that moment of panic, so you realize you need to be safe, right? So I remember I start running away, but I just remember, oh my God, I need to be safe. So I stand under the frame of the door. So and then the news started, like on the radio, like saying, oh, there's a big earthquake, 7 point something. I don't remember, to be honest. And the capitals in Salvador, Santa Tecla, and there is a lot of buildings that are being like damaged, and that's kind of weird, like the street being closed because landslides that are happening right now. I think it was raining at that part of the year, the season, right? So I don't that kind of.
Yeah, it was really, really hard. It was a tragic Saturday. Yeah, it was based on the information that I have, the magnitude was 7.6 in the Richter scale. So it was really hard, really, really hard. Yeah. So and one important thing is that back in those days, I mean, nowadays we have a little bit more what to do, but back in those days we didn't know what to do, right? It was really hard for us to protect ourselves or to be safe. So let's move to the next question. So this question, were you injured during the earthquake? If so, could you share your experience and how you managed to get help?
Oh, well, I wasn't injured at that moment. None of my family members were injured. But I heard, on the news, on the radios, a lot of people were injured. The some of the people, they're even like, under the debris from the building. Kind of that was most of my scariest moment, because I was like hearing the news and like, when that happens, you tend to, stay alert and make, because, based on the history of earthquakes. So if something of that magnitude happens, so it's going to happen again and repeatedly, right? Every like 30 minutes, based on the science behind it. I wasn't injured at all. I was just make sure like stay alert for if something like this happen again. So we're gonna be ready, you kind of have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to earthquakes. You need to have like water, like next to you, like probably a flashlight or like food in case of something
Medicine.
like this happen again. Medicine, yeah, that's the most important thing, is make sure your family members are around you and they're safe, right?
Right.
And make sure they're not gonna be injured or they're gonna be like panic. That's the most thing. You need to make sure um they don't, I want to say, they don't get crazy thinking about that's gonna happen, and then they don't do things that they're gonna like
Yeah.
injure themselves.
Right. Yeah, and it was really complicated. Based on the call and the Salvador National Emergency Committee, they recorded that it was like 800 people died just in that day, and more than
850. I
one,
was reviewing. Yeah,
and more than
kind of. Yeah.
100 houses were destroyed. Wow, that's a lot of houses. So yeah. Now let's check this question. So, were there any significant challenges you faced in the days and weeks following the earthquake? Because one thing, as you mentioned, it was the actual earthquake. But yeah, maybe that day or maybe the next weeks, it's kind of hard, right?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again? I
Yeah.
didn't hear you
So
well.
were there any significant challenges you faced in the days and weeks following the earthquake?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things that I remember that happened at the moment is any public transportation was blocked, right? If you still remember, part of um the also the highway from the Choros,
Mhm.
that area was completely covered
Right. It was
on
closed.
like,
Mhm.
yeah, debris of soil from the mountains, and so it was closed, like food, and people trying to get because if one of the main route is blocked, so obviously there's not going to be any transportation, or I don't know, I would say trucks coming with food and stuff like that. So I think that was the main challenges, I
Right.
guess, from people and from myself. um Probably the electricity or those
Mhm.
services, stuff like that,
Right.
like being like on and off. Um, yeah, I guess that was one of like some of the challenges.
Right. And it was really hard, right? So next question says, how did the experience of surviving the earthquake shape your perspective on life? I mean, thank God we didn't have like any high impact, but yeah, something has changed. Did it change your priorities or outlook in any way?
Well, living in California, I think I'm more exposed to earthquakes.
Mhm.
Historically, California is one of the places that you will be experiencing um, events like that. I think, yeah, it changed my perspective, the way that now I know what to do is that happen again, right? But at the same time, it's scary. It's a scary situation because you never prepare for that. Can
Right.
happen in any moment, right? I feel like I can. is that happen again, I can, you know, keep my composure in those situations and make sure I'm gonna be safe, and I'm gonna make sure my family is gonna be safe. I think I have more knowledge and more information how to deal with those situations. If that happens again, then I know it's gonna happen, because they say they're gonna happen a big one here in California anytime soon. I don't know when, you know.
But we need to
But yeah,
prepare.
yeah, I think I'm gonna be more prepared. I will make sure, you know, if that happen again, I will, you know, be prepared.
Right? That's the most important part. So,
Right.
looking back, what advice or suggestion would you give to someone who might find themselves in a similar situation? As you mentioned, we have a lot of disasters in California. So, what lessons did you learn from that experience?
I think one of the main things, you have to be like, if that happen again, you have to be mentally prepared, because one, people tend to panic, and I understand we have different personalities, right? And we tend to panic on those situations like that. It could be an earthquake, could be a flooding, could be, you know, a hurricane, or, well, whatever the reason is. I think you
Right.
need to be mentally prepared, you know, like keep the composure and try to make sure your family is safe. And, you know, as you said it, right, like try to buy like a first aid kit, water, flashlight, some food available, something like that, because the services uh, can be like a little bit of resources when that happened. I noticed that. So make sure you have like canned food. That's so important. So that way, you know, supermarkets can be, you know, closed for the public. You know, main streets can be closed. So I know it's kind of doesn't make sense. You know, we have power all the time. We have water all the time, but you know, it's always good to be prepared. You have like flashlight, doesn't like $5, $10. You can food, water. Yeah, make sure you have your cell phone available, all your contacts, right? So make sure you're gonna call people when that happens. Make sure they're okay, they're safe. You know, you local hospitals. Make sure you have all the information on file. I think that's important. We tend to forget about those things, but you know, earthquakes can happen anytime.
Right.
Like
And
they
as you
can get
already
you by
mentioned,
surprise.
right? And as
Yeah,
you
they can
mentioned,
get
it
you
can
by
be
surprise.
any other disaster, right? Not only earthquakes,
Yeah, and you
hurricane.
have to be, yeah, and you have to be worried if you live in a building like I do. You know,
Right.
like the building, you know, building, you know, like floors, an apartment building. So kind of, yeah, you have to be prepared for those moments.
Yeah, you need to know where's the exit room or the, I mean, or the
Yeah,
best place to go when that happens. Yeah, so we're getting pretty much to the end. So, Nestor, is there anything else you would like to share about your experience surviving the earthquake in El Salvador that we haven't covered, or anything else that you remember?
I've, yeah, I feel like one thing that I want to add, like at the end, is like, you know, if you're safe, if your family is safe, and you're in a good place at that moment, try to help someone, right? Try to go above and beyond to make sure, you know, your neighbors are okay, your friends are okay. You know, try to go an extra mile and make sure they're okay. And yeah, try to communicate to each person if they
Right.
need something, you know, they might need any assistance, or I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever the case is.
And yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. And also, if you have pets, so you need to take care of your pets as well. All right. So, well, that's
Yep.
it. Thank you so much for this time, Nestor. Well, I appreciate the time that you shared this information with us. So it was a really big pleasure to talk to you this day. All right.
My pleasure.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye.